Well, welcome everybody to Aquarius Yoga. Tonight is intended to be a practice to help strengthen the ankles, which is the part of the body that Aquarius rules, the lower leg and the ankles, as well as just helping us stand our ground a little bit. Aquariuses are the know-it-alls of the zodiac, and it's not that they think they know it all, they actually do, which is hard for the rest of us sometimes to accept. But they're also very good at knowing and seeing what might be best for everyone, not just themselves. It's a very much a community-oriented zodiac sign. So when they're telling us advice on how to do things, it might be like for the greater good, not just what they think personally will be helpful. And so this idea of like standing your ground for what you believe in and for the greater good is very much an Aquarius type trait. They're good at envisioning and inventing, right? So the internet was developed during a time when there was a lot of Aquarius energy happening in the sky, for example. All right, more on that later. Real quick to go through, like, what is she talking about? If you're just curious and you're like, Aquarius and ankles, like, what is that all about? If you care to stand up, I promise to bring you right back down to the floor to warm up. But if you care to stand up and join me for a little game of heads, shoulders, knees, and toes. So the first sign of the zodiac is Aries. So if you're born in the month of March or April, it's Aries. Aries rules the head. So I'm going to go through it. So touch your head, head of the ram, Aries. And then we go down the body to the next one, which is Taurus, neck of the bull. And then hands or arms, hands and arms of the twins, which is Gemini. So Gemini rules the hands and arms. And then you get the chest of the crab. Cancer is the crab, right? Rules the chest. And then Leo is next. Heart of the lion rules the heart and the spine, the upper back area. And then we get Virgo, belly of the virgin. So Virgo rules the belly. Then we get the back of the scales. Libra is a scale or a balance. And then the thighs are ruled by Sagittarius, right? So the thighs of the centaur, you can even like visualize the centaur, half man, half horse. And then we get the knees of the sea goat, which is Capricorn, the goat. And then the ankles of the water bearer. Aquarius is the water bearer. And then the feet, finally, are ruled by Pisces. So the feet of the fish, which I know sounds funny because fish don't have feet. You're welcome to come back down. We're actually going to start on the back. So if you want to make your way slowly down onto your back, we'll start there together. Take your time transitioning, especially if you just played heads, shoulders, knees, and toes with me. And as I mentioned, we are currently in Aquarius season. In fact, as we are recording this, there are 5 planets in Aquarius, and next week when the moon moves into Aquarius during the new moon, there will be 6. So that's a big spotlight on Aquarius energy. And what I like to do is use that as a reminder to be like, oh, right, ankles, haven't taken care of those in a while. So that's what we'll do today. So starting on your back in constructive rest position, have your back on the floor and your knees bent, your feet flat on the ground. And you're always welcome to have your hands on the body as a way to connect. Touch is a wonderful way to connect and get feedback. And take a few moments here. Simply feel your body. Feel all these parts that we just called out, from the head down to the toes. And even if you connect more with one particular zodiac sign, and even if that's not Aquarius, we have all of the energies in us. Some are a little more forward than others. Some are hiding. It's almost like you can think of it as archetypes. And sometimes we play different roles or step into the archetype of one thing or another during different times of our life or even parts of our day. And so as you feel your feet connecting with the ground, notice the ankles just up from there. You might even feel your heel heavy against the earth. And just take a few more breaths to arrive here. Letting all the different parts of you arrive. And then squeeze the knees in towards your chest. Give yourself a hug. You can bring your nose up towards your knees if you like. And then place the feet flat on the floor again. And lift your heels up off the ground. So you're keeping your toes or the balls of the feet on the floor and you're lifting your heels. And do that a few times. You can do both of them together or one at a time and do a little switcheroo back and forth. So that's what it feels like to move in this way. Now, your ankle is almost entirely responsible for all movements of your foot. Your foot doesn't do very much by itself. It's kind of helpless without the ankle. So the ankles are really important. Now, you might have to scoot your feet a little bit out from your bum for this next part and lift your toes. So this time, keep your heels down and lift your toes. Now, everybody's going to have a little bit of a different ability to do this. Some of you can go way up off the ground and some of your toes barely lift. That's fine. And then lift and lower a few times. You get to decide how quickly or how many times, or if you do a little alternating tap, tap, tap as you lift. All right, then stretch your legs down on the floor, reach your arms up overhead. Give yourself a full body stretch. And then when you come back, feet flat on the floor, cross your left ankle on top of your right thigh. So you're making sort of a figure four shape with your legs. And circle your foot. So you're using your ankle to make circles. Now, if you're like me, sometimes your ankle might pop or crick. That's particularly something that happens in the wintertime when the air is drier. Go a couple times in the other direction as well. But sometimes when the ankles are too loose, they'll pop a lot. That's my personal experience, and it's something I'm working on. So some of the things we're doing today will help strengthen that. All right, pause the circles, and if possible, reach through for a bit of a hip stretch. Take your hands between the leg, grab the back of your right thigh, and recline so that your head can rest on the floor or maybe up on a blanket. And then release the hands, but keep your legs in their figure four shape. Take your arms out across your mat and scoot your hips a few inches to the left. Sweep your right foot out of the way and let your legs fall to the right. So you're coming into a reclined twist shape. And if this feels like it's pulling too much on your lower back on the left side, uncross the legs instead. So getting warmed up. All right, push your hands into the ground to help your legs come back up and uncross the legs. Let's switch to the other side. So cross your right ankle on top of your left thigh now and make circles with your foot. Notice if it feels different on this foot, different pops or cricks, or maybe nothing at all. And then reach through the leg for the reclined pigeon stretch or the figure 4 hip stretch. Now, if it gets a little tight, like it is for me on this side, that's where that pillow underneath your head or a folded up blanket can be nice. You also don't have to reach for the leg. You can simply rest your right foot down and stay in the figure 4 shape. And then release your hands, prepare for the twist on the ground. Take your arms out across your mat and scoot your hips a few inches to the right. Sweep your leg out of the way and let your legs fall to the left. Remember, not everything's going to look the same on the second side. You feel like you have to rearrange yourself a little differently. Honor those differences. And then press your hands into the floor. Come on back up. Unwind your legs and take the knees side to side like windshield wipers a few times. Keep going. All right, and now straighten yourself out on the ground again. And if you're on a yoga mat, that's going to be extra helpful, such that you want your heels to be on the mat. If they're off the mat, they'll slide around a little too much for this next part. I call this sloshing. I can't take credit for it. But what we're going to do is vigorously point and flex the feet. And if your heels stay put on your yoga mat or on the floor, it'll cause your whole body to do a little yes nod. Kind of like when an Aquarius friend in your life says, this is the way to do things. And you go, okay, because you know they know better. Now, if your heels are lifted, you won't move except for your feet. So that's a choice you can make, but I think it's more fun. We're creating a lot of heat in the ankles. Try a few more. Quickly point, flex, point, flex, point, flex, point, flex. Woo, and then take a break, bring the knees in. All right, go ahead and roll to one side. Take your time and come up to your hands and knees. If you have a blanket nearby, feel free to pad the knees, but in this case, you might also pay attention to how the padding affects your ankle or your foot, right? So I spent a lot of time in point shoes growing up. So my feet flatten out kind of nicely, if you will, in terms of I don't feel a lot of pain when that happens or sensation. Some people, there's a lot of space between the floor and the top of their foot, and that's just how you're built, and that's fine. So one of the things that you can do when you're in a kneeling position is actually roll your little bit of your blanket up so that it fills that gap between the top of your foot or your ankle and the floor. And that's only if that feels good for you. It might take a little smushing down and configuring the blanket in a way that feels good. And maybe it doesn't do anything for you, but just something that you can play with. All right. Once you're comfortable on hands and knees, start to round your back into a cat shape. And then release the belly for cow. Move back and forth more fluidly now between the rounded back and the arched position. Aquarius is the water bearer. So even though it is an air sign, it brings us water. It brings fluidity into our lives. So see how much fluid motion you can create in your spine. It also rules the lymphatic system, right? And when things aren't flowing in the lymphatic system, we have dis-ease. From here, lean back slightly, bring your hips any amount towards the heels for whatever feels good in your knees and your ankles. For some of you, you can go all the way back, more like a child's pose. And you might have never thought of child's pose as being something related to your ankles, but maybe today, let's consider how this movement or this posture flexes the foot backwards and affects the foot, affects the ankle. Maybe you feel a bit of a stretch through the front of the foot. Take a few easy breaths here. And then lift your hips away from your heels. If possible, curl your toes under. You're the one in charge of your experience here. So if you've done something silly to one of your toes recently, or this is not possible on one or both feet, don't worry about it. And just notice how that feels. And then if you like, bring your hips back towards the heels. Now you might feel more sensation in the toes, but just notice that this has changed the way your foot is relating to the rest of your body and to the floor. If you want more sensation or more stretch in the feet, you can bring your head and your chest up over your belly. There's a reason why this is called intense toe stretch. So if any of you are kind of doing one of these to get out of it, I get it. If you can stand it for just a moment, take one more breath. Exhale. And then lean forward, come on out, tap the toes a few times. Okay. Take your left foot forward now for a lunge. You can leave your right knee down on the floor. And I'm going to recommend take your left hand to the top of your foot and actually use the hand to press down. If it's helpful to have a block here underneath your right hand, you can. And what you're going to do is bend and straighten your left knee between the lunge position and like a half split position, but keep your hand on top of your foot. So you're kind of pressing it down and feeling the way that your ankle moves in your hand. So like when you're just flexing and you're straightening and bending your knee, but you're also straightening and bending your ankle. And notice all the little things that get pressed into your hand and how it moves. Like some of these things you may never have noticed before, right? You could even take both hands, like one to the heel, one to the foot, and just help your foot feel heavy as you move back and forth. And it doesn't have to be a big move. I just want you to feel those feelings. And then when you feel like staying in the lunge for a little bit, you're welcome to keep your hands on your foot or just one hand on your foot. Or maybe now you take the hands and let them float at your sides. And hopefully you're a little more aware of the flexion, the flexing, the angle of your foot. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this, just noticing body parts. If it feels good to reach the arms up overhead or opening up that space underneath the armpit where there's many, many lymph nodes. Take a few breaths here. And then rest your hands down on floor or blocks and straighten out that same leg. But keep your foot, the whole of the foot if possible, on the ground. And some of you may get quite the stretch down the front part of the ankle and the front part of the foot. Now bend it again so you're in the lunge. And this time when you straighten your leg, lift the toes. So just your heel is connected with the floor. Now you might feel the stretch a little differently, maybe the back of the leg more. And you're welcome to play with that a few more times or decide, do you want to be in the pointed, whole foot on the floor position, or do you want to be in the flexed, toes pulling back position? Now, if If you're able to reach for your toes with your opposite hand, you might even actually help them back slightly. You might feel some extra feelings in the back of your leg here, so stay gentle. Nice. And then we'll switch legs. So sweep the left one back and bring the right one forward, and start with your right hand, same side hand, on your foot. Press down so it stays heavy and connected to the floor as you bend and straighten, rock back and forth a few times. If you liked trying holding the heel of the foot with your other hand, this is one of those great mobility exercises as you keep the foot flat, but then continue to reach the knee forward. Nice. And then maybe you get ready to stay in your low lunge, bending the knee and the ankle to whatever degree feels okay. Arms at your sides or overhead. Breathe in and out through the nose. And then release the hands down. Shift the hips back to straighten your right leg now, keeping the whole foot on the floor if possible, and feel into the stretch in the arch of the foot, the front of the ankle. And then try it again, but lift the toes. So keep the heel in contact with the floor. And you can point and flex your foot now from your half split position and notice the different feelings. If you like the one with the toe pulled back and you can reach with the opposite hand, you're welcome to be gentle and pull a little bit more. Stick with something that feels like it works for right now. Nice. And then bring both knees back underneath you and tabletop. Shift the hips a little bit side to side. And then if you like, this is a great place for a downward dog. Curl the toes under, press the hands into the floor, and lift the hips. Of course, I'm bringing your attention to your feet and your ankles, right? Your lower legs. So as you bend one knee, press the other heel to the ground. Really stretch the back of the lower leg, the calf. And then switch sides. Bend your other knee, press the other heel down. And you might notice when you do it one foot at a time, that one heel might feel like it reaches a little closer to the ground than the other one. Now, this is less obvious when you have both feet working together and you're in neutral downward dog, right? You're just kind of looking back. It may not be so obvious. And we're not judging the foot that can't go quite as deeply. It's just something to notice. All right. Tiptoe your way towards a forward fold. Let your hands and head hang over the torso. And then come all the way up to stand. Take your time coming up. We've been low to the ground. And step your feet wide. Wrap your arms around you now, as if you're wearing empty coat sleeves and you're letting the coat sleeves wrap around you. Twist side to side. And very lovingly, the hand that's in the front, let it tap right near the armpit chest area. Not so that it hurts, but just so that you're getting some of the lymph to move. We want things to flow freely, right? That's one of the things that Aquarius brings. Sometimes we can look at the sign before it and after it to know what it's not doing. So like Capricorn is an earth sign. It likes to build stuff. And then Aquarius comes along and goes, okay, but now this is how you use it. This is how you move in it. This is how you live in it. All right, turn this into a little hip circle. I'm gonna get the whole body moving here. A few times in the other direction. And if any of you are dancers, you know about your feet, right? You know about your ankles. Okay. Now, this next move, I recommend you either step up next to a wall if possible, and you can hold on to something, you know, just anything at all, like a chair or a wall. I'm going to recommend a wall, and it's okay if you have to rearrange. I don't need to see you, but maybe you can look at me. So what you're going to do is have your hands on the wall or on the top of the chair and walk your feet back a little bit so that your legs are at an angle to the floor. Ideally, your heels are touching the ground, but it doesn't have to be. Now from here, you'll feel a bit of a stretch down through the back body. And some of you may recognize this as a stretch for your calves. But really what we're going to do is actually use this as an exercise to strengthen the ankles. So in this position with your legs straight, knees straight, you're going to come up onto your toes as high as you possibly can, and then press your heels back down. So you're just coming up onto the toes and lowering to your starting position. But because you're at an angle, it can feel a little different than doing it, you know, ballet style, standing up, which is also great. One of the advantages of this one is some of you will start to feel like your knees and thighs are actually getting some of the benefit as well. Now, if you hear a little rhythmic pop or click, that's my left ankle. I mentioned the loose ankles, and this is one of the things that helps to strengthen it. All right, try a few more. Up, down, up, down. Hopefully you're feeling some heat rising in the ankles and in the calves. Woo. Now, if you're at a wall, turn around with your back against the wall. Walk your feet out away from the edge of the wall a few inches, like maybe a foot, and you can change your mind in a moment. This is the hard part. With the legs straight, you're going to try to lift your toes off the ground. So you come up onto your heels and then lower back down. With control, lift up and lower down. Now, if you want to make it harder, walk your feet further away from the wall, and then woo, it takes a lot more for those ankles to lift up onto your heels and to lower. If you need less, then come a little closer to the wall. And if the ball of your foot doesn't leave the floor, that's okay too. If just the toes lift, that's fine. We're trying to get the whole foot except for the heel up off the ground and then back down. So try that a few more times as best you can. And if you can only do one side, that's fine too. Lift lower, lift lower, lift lower, lift lower. All right. Now come around again to face the first way. You're already familiar with this. Do this one again. Legs at an angle to the wall. Keep the knees straight and then lift up onto your toes. So now we've reversed it to the toes. If this feels good and you want to try something a little bit more intense or more just vigorous, it'll also help strengthen your thighs. You're going to, instead of keeping your legs straight, you're going to bend your knees. But because you're at an angle to the wall, it'll look a little bit like this. And your heels will pop up off the floor behind you. But there's still a little bit of room for you to come up onto the toes higher than that and then come into your starting position. So imagine your knees are staying in this 90-ish degree position. And now your toe lifts, or your heel lifts rather, are simply from a bent knee position. If that feels like too much, keep the legs straight and try a few more. 3 more, 2 more, last one. Okay, whew. Shake out your feet. Sometimes it can feel good to get the stretch through the front if you bring the tops of your foot and toe to the ground. Be gentle though. Same thing with the other side. And then just lightly walk in place. Aquarians are very good at like standing their ground. They're like, yep, this is what I believe. This is what I know. And It's very hard to change their minds because most of the time they actually know something that we might not, right? So it's up to us to catch up to them often. All right. Okay, let's do something a little bit different. It'll still involve your feet, of course, because we're standing, but come into a warrior one lunge. So step your left foot way back, heel popped up if possible, right foot connected to the floor, and bend your right knee. So it's like a lunge, but it's a warrior one lunge. And then play with your arms a little bit. If you want to keep them on the hips, that's fine. But bring some fluidity into the rest of the shapes. That might be like one arm lifts, you lean a little bit to one side. It might be that you pretend you're flying and you've got little wings. And then notice the angle of your knee and your ankle and see what's possible. Some of you might be a little further back. Some of you might be a little further forward. All of it is fine. And if any of you are going, but I didn't think that it was okay to put my knee past my toes. You do it every time you walk up and down the stairs. So it's actually great for us to practice it. Plus, we're not trying to lift 5,000 pounds from that position. We just have our body weight on top. All right. Let's bring the feet together at the top of the mat. Shake it out. And then try the same thing to the other side. So step back with the right foot now. Bend your left knee, warrior one lunge. And just have fun with the arms. And notice how as you change your arms in space, your feet and legs and ankles are trying to keep you from falling on the floor. In fact, you've got more than just those things helping you. You've got this vestibular sense inside, right? If any of you have experienced vertigo, you know what it's like to lose that. It's quite disorienting. And breathe in and out through the nose as best you can. All right, and then step the feet together. Ooh, a little bit of fire in the legs. Let's take it up a notch. I'm gonna come back into your warrior one lunge with the right knee bent. This time, maybe bring your arms up overhead and lean forward slightly towards the front thigh. Press off of your back foot and try to lift your left knee up to hip height. Crane pose. And then step back to your warrior one lunge. Now it's okay if it takes a couple hops or if you decide you need to keep a smaller stance, or if you touch down, it's fine. But try to go back and forth between the lunging warrior and your crane. Now, both feet and ankles are actually involved in this, right? Your right one is stabilizing you, trying to keep you from falling down, and your left foot and ankle are working to shift forward onto that right foot. The next time you're in your crane pose, maybe balance there for a bit. Nice. And then touch down. Whew. Shake out the standing leg, and then let's try the other side. So step back with your right foot, warrior one lunge. Feel free to bring the arms up overhead. If it felt more stable to have them on the hips, feel free. And then press off of your back foot, spring forward, crane pose, other side. And then go back and forth. And if you end up doing more of the flying arms like you did before, just because you're trying to balance, that's fine too. It doesn't have to look like anything. Trying to go with more functional movement here so that you can stand strong on your left foot now. We spend very little time in our lives on 2 feet. We're either shifting from one to the other. Even when we're standing still in the kitchen, we might have our weight on one side more, right? And as some of you are feeling, this is not just about the ankle, the thighs, the knees get strengthened as well. All right, maybe float into your crane. Try to balance there. And then step down. Whew, shake it out. All right. Warrior two. So now your right foot is going to still point forward, but as you step your left foot back, bring it flat on the floor. So instead of having the heel up behind you, it's slightly turned to the side. And the angle of that foot is going to depend on what's possible for you and what feels good. Now, if you shorten your stance a little bit, just so you can play, what I love, one of the things I love about Warrior Two is that it actually helps to strengthen and stretch the outside of your ankle. Some of you may need to be a little bit more gentle with that. But as the angle of your leg changes, keeping the foot flat on the floor, if you go wider, you'll feel a little bit of a different stretch, the outside of the foot. So you can play with that a little bit. All right, hopefully that takes your mind off the fact that your right knee is deeply bent and you're feeling really strong. Take the arms out wide and open the palms up to the sky, creating some space across the chest from hand to hand. Breathe. Beautiful. And then straighten your leg. Ooh, lower the arms and let's switch feet to the other side. So turn your left toes out to the left wall now. Bend your left knee and you can decide how far apart your feet want to be, how long on your mat you want to go, depending on what that right ankle now feels like it's possible. Warrior two, other side, palms face up. Open the energy line. Beautiful. Take one or two more breaths. And then straighten your leg. Ooh, and turn around to the first side. Warrior two once again. This time we're going to add a little bit of flow to this. So take your right hand or forearm and rest it on your right thigh. And take your left arm, if possible, close to your ear. Again, opening up that space under your armpit, lymph node. This is called side angle pose. And we're going to go back and forth between the two. So come up to warrior two. Head and belly stacked, and then side angle. Stretch out the left side body. Beautiful. Back and forth a few times. And if it feels good, the next time you come up to warrior two, if you want to reach the right hand to the sky and open up the other side, reverse warrior, and then fold towards side angle. Nice. Try one or two more. Get in the flow. Beautiful. And then rise up, straighten your leg, take a break, and switch around to the other side. So warrior two, bend your left knee this time. And then let's flow with side angle on the other side. Left elbow or hand can rest on your thigh. And then rise up, warrior two. And if you prefer to add the reverse, reach the left hand up and then the right arm up. And if all of this arm stuff is just feeling a little too much, keep your hands on your thigh and create some fluidity in just the upper body, right? That's really what we're working, is the connection here. The arms are just extra. They're awesome extras, but they're extra. All right, the next time you're up in your warrior two, go ahead and straighten your leg. Ooh, turn your feet so that they're parallel. And if you got a little long on your mat, you can come in a little closer. Bring your hands on your hips, or if it's possible for you, interlace the fingers behind your tailbone, Or if, like me, you swam too many laps and that's just not really something you can do, take your strap, or if you have something you can bring between the hands, take it behind you and then start to hinge forward and fold so that your head lowers while your hands lift. Now, you don't have to go very far to feel the effects of this. And if it feels better to bend the knees, go right ahead. You can come halfway or lower the head and lift the hands. Standing wide angle forward fold or yoga mudra. And come up halfway. Go ahead and bend your knees a little bit so you can let go of the strap and take your hands to the tops of your thighs. So now you're holding yourself up. Yeah. Turn your toes out a little bit at an angle. And then give the pose to your legs. So you're suddenly in a squat. Magic. Got a squat. If you got into it kind of funny or the hips feel funny, go ahead and stand up and then shift the hips side to side. All right, take the hands out to the side, palms up. Reach the fingers out wide across the room. You get to decide how much heat is in this pose. If you want to step the feet closer, that's great. And then bend the elbows, palms face forward. Nice. Go ahead and take a break. Straighten the arms, straighten the legs. Whew. And then let's try it again. Goddess squat. Now you can have your hands in the goddess position, elbows wide, or bring the hands down to the thighs or to the hips to feel more supported here. What you're going to try to do is lift one heel any amount off the ground and then lower it back down. And then try the other side. So we've already done some lifting and lowering when we were at the wall. And even if it's just a tiny little bit, notice what is possible for your ankles. If your thighs are feeling the burn and you want to pay more attention to your ankles, take your feet in a little closer together. Play with that. It'll also take weight off, so there's not as much weight on the one side that you're trying to lift. If you're feeling frisky and you want to try to lift both heels, see if it's possible then to bend your knees a little bit more. Stay playful with it. Thank your ankles for all the hard work they do every day. All right, take a break, straighten the legs. Turn the feet in, walk them even closer together. And then take a standing forward bend over the legs. Bend the knees as much as you like. And then escort yourself into a bit of a squat. So if you're in the forward fold, bend your knees and maybe start with the hands on the top of the thighs. You can decide how far apart you want your feet and what angle. But we're going to start to lower the hips a little bit. If your knees don't like to bend very much, maybe your elbows come to the tops of your thighs. If your ankles and knees let you bend more and you can drop your bum down, then it's more of a malasana squat. Now, if like me, you spent too much time in point shoes, the heels may not stay down. It's okay this time around. That's not really what we're going for. We're just trying to feel into the ankles, into the hip crease here. And you can rock a little bit side to side if you're down low. You can rock a little bit side to side if you're up high. And you're also welcome to stay more still. Take a few more moments here. escort yourself all the way down to sit. Whew. Extend your legs out, shake them out side to side, swish the knees. And let's come into half butterfly or Janu Shirsasana. So extend your right leg straight out and bend your left knee out to the side. Now, if this rotation isn't possible, you can kind of kick that foot out to the side. And then walk your torso over the front extended leg. Now, this is where the strap can come in handy again if you want to lasso the foot. Or if it's possible for you to reach the foot, much like we did earlier, try to reach for the tops of the toes and very gently pull back. So your active ability to pull the toes back is what your ankle has possible for mobility, active mobility. And then passive mobility is if after pulling with the hand, you get another degree or so, then you have a little bit more mobility available in your passive state, which is pretty normal. With ankles, it can feel harder to feel a difference there. Take a couple more breaths wherever you are. And if you prefer to hold the floor and simply fold, let your head get closer to the ground. And then walk your hands back up. Switch the legs. So now your left leg extends and your right knee comes out to the side. And then fold the torso over the extended leg. An option to see if it's possible to reach for the toes going above and over to pull back ever so slightly. If it just feels better to release, try that instead. And walk your hands back up towards the hips. Shake out both legs now. And then take butterfly with both knees out to the side so that you can have your hands on your ankles. If you suddenly realize you want to have your socks back on, please do that. And it can feel so very subtle, but very nurturing to have some weight or your hands around your ankles. It's often one of the things that I wished for when I was in a yoga class. At the end of class, and a teacher would come and just press down on my ankles. It's strange, but there are lots of really great acupuncture points here, including some that we just don't touch when someone is carrying a baby, right? Because they're that powerful. That doesn't mean you can't poke around and see what things feel like right now, but just saying there's a lot of powerful acupuncture points right around the ankle. It's the kidney line in the body. When you're ready, scoop your knees together and get ready to recline onto your back. We've got one more pose and then we'll head to relaxation. So if you want to have a blanket close by as you roll down to cover with in a moment, feel free. When you get to your back, let the feet come flat on the floor, much like we started, except have the feet right underneath your knees. So if you want to have your knees wider, take your feet wider. If you want to have your knees closer together, take your feet closer together. And then try to scoot your heels as close into your buttocks as you possibly can. Might feel a little strange. And then stretch your hands and arms down alongside the body. Now, some of you have really long arms. And when you do that, you can touch the heel of your foot, your ankle. I have to do a little side swivel to actually make that possible, which means then I can't do it on the other side. But some of you might just find your feet right there. Congratulations. It has everything to do with arm length and nothing to do with flexibility. Regardless, let your hands now rest as close to your feet there as possible at your sides. And press your feet into the floor. Start to lift your hips into a bridge pose. And then maybe wiggle the shoulder blades together behind you. Now, for some of you, now that you're up high, when you reach down, you might be able to actually grab onto your ankles. It's all just an exploration. And if it's not even possible, don't worry about it. It's something that I can only do in my dreams. Keep pressing the whole foot into the floor. Notice the ankle supporting the rest of your legs. Feel the breath in the belly, the ribs, and the back. And really press into your whole foot, the heel and the ball. And then slowly lower your bum down. Pause instead of adjusting right away. Notice the echo, the strength from your legs, your trunk muscles. And then go ahead and counter stretch either with full body stretch or maybe a squeeze in. And then bring the feet wider apart when you let them fall back down to the mat. So now they're not really underneath your knees. And take your arms out wide across your mat for a reclined twist. Let the knees fall to the left. Pause here for a few moments. And then bring the knees up and over to twist to the other side. And then bring the knees back through center. Maybe give yourself another hug or squeeze, or reach for the ankles for a happy baby variation with your hands on your shins or on your ankles if you can reach. And get ready to set up for relaxation with the legs out long. Maybe you bring a bolster or a blanket underneath the thighs or over the belly. And switch the feet a little bit back and forth, like those are the windshield wipers now. Let go of any remaining tension in the legs. And feel your body anchored to the earth. Feel yourself connected to the ground. And take a breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And let all the energy we've moved around swirl inside of you. You might feel the heartbeat and the blood flow. And ask yourself, what is it that you know for sure, deep down inside? Aquarius is our wisest self. And I'm not talking necessarily about truth, like what's absolutely true. It's just like, what do you just know for sure? And sometimes you might go against that wisdom, right? We call it crimes against wisdom. Like when you know for sure you need to be in bed by 10 and you stay up till 11, right? And it's going to be different for everybody, right? So what do you know for sure? Either for yourself or for your family or for your community. And feel comfort in knowing that knowing. Notice your breath coming in at the tip of your nose. There's a part of you that knows exactly what you need to feel good. So as you start to move slowly and wake back up, or maybe you know that you need to stay on the ground here for a little bit longer. Don't worry about the video connection, it will just disappear. But listen to that inner knowing and decide. And if you have decided to come back upright, I will greet you. And if you have decided to stay in relaxation for a little longer, excuse me, I wish you a wonderful rest of the evening. Thank yourself for this time and space to practice, this opportunity to connect with others. I'm so grateful to connect with you in this way. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your day.